Okay? But understand who you're making an agreement with. And understand that what?
How clever.
Something takes possession of a part of your soul. And this is what these Nephilim does. Are they permanent?
Where'd you get that?
No, they're not permanent.
From Milano's place?
When you recognize the sin in you and the things you're doing wrong, and there's a conscience against it.
Like what?
You're battling against that spirit who's using your body.
And if you know, you should never.
It's taking hold. That spirit of taking hold of that original sin that started with Adam to help you choose evil even when good is present.
Where my wrath?
Okay, that's how it works. That's how it works. So when people talk about demon possession, exorcism, and see, and this is why most people don't believe that demon possession is really happening to the people. That's really happening. Folks, you know why? Because they gave us the extreme through the Exodus. That when there's a demon possession, it's someone with spitting out green stuff, their head is turning around. But no, demons. Demons, folks, have many characters. And the most powerful demons are the subtle ones. Why? They don't want you to recognize they're there, or you will seek to rid them. You would seek to rid them. So what are they? They're demons. Where did they come from? They came from the Nephilim, who had no place in habitations or in heaven because they were made outside of the normal process of man and woman.
You were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, it was just around nothing
for miles.
Right.
So very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. About 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their rally points. And before we'd left, there was all kinds of what happened with the ambush, but that was even odd because at point of ambush, you would call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, it could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard.
Everybody. And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was longish, past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the reality. Because it was so real.
Now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah, okay. Muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire, and I start firing. He skewers Dan. He's now got him on this pike. It went through him. And he's still got him, and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. weapons components were M4, we had 308s, and we had Barrett 50s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits and is still moving. Dan was dead. Okay. And Why is a good man, probably one of the best men I know, now dead. Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not a medevac request. All of a sudden we had a helicopter show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. And we get another bigger helicopter, but it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day that could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift. Mm-hmm. And so we got him on there. The thing was too big. We couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk. A corpse that's been around for a while.
Really foul.
Oh, it was like a combination because of the, how do you put that, the persistence of a skunk smell. But once the helicopter came in, dropped its little hook, and off he goes. The communication was sent out that we had a very large possible human creature.
There you are in the hills of Afghanistan. How many troop members are you with?
We had 6 on my crew. When we say hills of Afghanistan, for us, we did not fly into the wilderness. We actually flew into a base. I guess this thing was transloaded out of the mountains by a CH-47. What I could see that it did have the 6 fingers. I remember taking my foot up and placing it up next to its foot, and it was extremely large. We estimated it at about 12 feet, give or take. What I can tell you is the weight of the thing. Basically, it was approximately 1,500 pounds when it was getting on the aircraft. Now, if you take away the pallet weight and all the rigging that we had to hold this thing down, we figured it was around 1,100 pounds.
Of course we're upset. That's a given. Okay. We lost a very good guy. But add to that, you're discussing something that even in our after action report, they're saying rewrite it. And we had to rewrite it the way they wanted.
How many fingers?
6 toes. 6 toes. And the nails were weird because if you see somebody that ever has, I don't know what it's called, but it's
like a fungus on
the nails, how they get pointy and they're like gnarly. That's what they look like.
There's a place for our spirits because the Most High sends our spirits. We had a place with the Most High from the beginning. Every soul on earth was with the Most High from the beginning and has a purpose on earth. And there's an exit point for all those spirits because it was intended for them for the beginning. But these spirits, Nephilim demon, there was no place for them. So that's why they roam the earth looking for a person that's subjected to sin so that they can take hold. And I'm going to tell you right now, the pharmaceutical apparatus is set up so that these spirits can take hold of a body with very, very little resistance from its host. I'll tell you that right now. Finish reading, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. We're in Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy 6. So let's talk about the standard now. The standard.
Yes, sir. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse number 1.
Now, when our people came, I know there's a little delay because we're here on I have you here remote today because of the snow. But go ahead. I need you, Elder Lawyer. Do us a favor, folks. We need you to hit more likes if you can. I really appreciate it. All right. But go ahead, Elder Lawyer. Let's read. When we came out of Egypt, the Most High told us, don't do as we learned in under the Egyptians. The Egyptians were pagan. They were traditionalists, but their moral, they didn't have no moral standard. Okay. Anything went. And I'm talking about bestiality, same-sex interactions, and all these things. Of course, there was people who were just having family and that didn't go to the other side of the Nile. No pun intended. Okay, but all in all, our God said, you see what we witness in Egypt? We are moral people. We're not like them. Here's a standard. And with this standard would make Israel a special people, a different people, a people worthy of protection from on high. See? So he says, I'm going to give you a standard. And all the people who come in presence of you and your family will learn those standards. Israelites were born to not only just teach the world, but at the end of it, to judge it. So the Most High just didn't give us a law. Thou shalt not do this and thou shalt not do that, strictly for, and it benefits us personally. It's a standard that does what? Give us a higher quality of life, and it gives us security to know that the Most High will protect and guide our children, who will teach these same standards to their children. So he not only gave it to us on a personal level, there was a global understanding of why our people, the children of Israel, would have the law, that he would send Christ. So that eventually, at the end of that law we've upheld in our lives, we would use that law to judge the evil that caused the chaos on our families. Not just the visible, the invisible also. So let's read some of this standard that our people once had. Elder Lawyer, let's go to Deuteronomy 6. A matter of fact, let me open it up with you here. And thank you all for your presence on this Sabbath. I hope you all are safe out there today. Hold on, let me get it with you, Elder Lawyer. A standard. Now, here is some of the scriptures we would read to our families on the Sabbath. Listen to this. Go ahead, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Deuteronomy 6, verse 1. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments, which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go to possess it.
So he says, listen, I'm going to give you laws, a standard in the land that you've gone to, that I'm giving you as an inheritance. So I'm not just letting y'all go willy-nilly up into my land without rules. Folks, when the colonizers came to America, they came with a standard. Regardless of what people might say about doctrine, the standard in America at one point was the Judeo-Christian morals and laws from the Holy Bible.
Let us pray.
That's why the Most High allowed them to do what they were doing, because it was establishing a book that would one day,
they're full of things your kind wouldn't
that would
understand.
one day be given back to its
Steady
people.
hard here.
So that means everyone went to church and everyone had a fear of God, a conscience towards God. And really, when it came to that scale I talked about earlier, that scale, it was more so tipped towards good, family values, traditions. Now, were they following every part of the Bible? No. But it was a conscience towards God when the Gentiles came here with our record, the Bible. So in order for them to establish this country, Babylon or America, or whatever place they colonized, they had to go in with the standard. That ain't something that was created by the Roman Empire and white people strategically thinking about. No. They read our record and understood it, that if they were going to go into a country, they would need the power of the God who set up a standard for his people going into Israel. They had to come with a standard.
There it is.
The question, brothers and sisters, are they following that standard now? So this is why I'm going to talk about why God is allowing all this to happen. Because at the end of this, I'm going to show you. The white man and the other nations, when they came over here, when they come over here, they know better. They knew better. They knew we were the children of Israel. They knew one day we would find out. It didn't stop them from bringing the Bible. Why? Because a standard had to be established that they know all people could cleave to for some level of order. You cannot set up a new civilization without a standard.
Your slaves sure do know how to behave.
Well, they God-fearing. One of them's a preacher.
People might pay good money to have them calm down a bit, especially by one of their own.
I lead you to Peter 2:18.
And then he says, all right, here's what I want you to do in the churches. I want you to get the preachers so into themselves that they ain't worrying about preaching the word. They're just worrying about performing. And they're not going to preach the word that's going to make any difference in your life. Don't let them not preach some of it. Let them preach a little of it, but confuse them so they don't know how all the connections take place. Oh, Lord, because preaching about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego won't be able to get what they need from the spirit into the natural world. So let them hoop and let them holler and let them scream and let them trot, because that won't be enough for them to get what they need, because they just don't know that the Bible says in all your getting, get understanding. Let them have a show. And let them have a good time. Let them run around the dome and let them fall out. Just don't let them understand how to operate in this word. If we can keep them away from understanding, then we can keep them cut off from what they really had. We've already been beat up by Jesus. We don't want to go through that no more. So we got to let them have religion. Give me that old time religion. Take me back to the old ship of Zion. Put me back on the rock of ages. Get him to do that.
Submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh.
Whether you believe it's true or not, okay? A standard must be set. If you're seeking all civilizations of people that you're conquering and people coming over to live morally and safely amongst one another, a standard must be set that they would come into. Well, the Judeo principles of the Bible was that. So the Most High gave us that going into Israel. He says, listen, I'll give you the land, but it comes with a standard. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. Deuteronomy 6, verse 2.
Come on.
That thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee. Thou and thy son and that thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and all his statutes, and his commandments, which I command thee, now, that thou and thy son.
Now, I know there's some feedback there, or there's some delay, Elder Lawyer. It's fine. I understand. But it says right here, brothers, fear our God. Now, this is a good fear. Now, do we fear the virus today more than God in this earth? In number. How many people fear God more than the virus they're talking about on the news today? To show you how far We have left the standard of understanding who God is. Okay? Our people just witnessed in the Bible our God parting the Reed Sea, destroying Pharaoh and his army in it. They seen the pillar of cloud at night, directing our people. Folks, I even showed in the academy the rock of Horeb, where the Most High had, when Moses struck the rock and the water gushed out. That's archaeological proof. It happened. It's still there. So when the Most High said, fear God, it's like, understand what I just did to those people who were disobedient, reprobate heathens who refused to let you go. They had real-time evidence of why you should fear that God. Brothers and sisters, that God still exists. Our educational system and all that have disconnected us purposely from understanding the God all man should fear, not just Israelites. And this is why I can look at their little code or whatever they say and going to happen. And I'm not sitting in my corner, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because I know the God who delivered us out of Egypt. I know the God who sent his son. And I know he's with us. That's the true fear that one must have to understand the power of our God. If you think what he did to Egypt was something, wait and see. And our people are going to what? We're going to be preserved through it. So the first thing he said is, understand that what I did in the back, in the back of us, in the wilderness, what I did to the Egyptians, understand that those who cross me will be on the other side of this judgment. So he said, I'm going to set up a standard. So Israelites, there's no excuse, Israel. I did everything for you. Fear me, because when you cross over to the Gentiles and follow their ways, eventually you will experience the judgment I have against them in the future. You will fall with those other nations. And it's not my, and the Most High says, it's not my fault. I gave you a standard. You get with these heathens who celebrate pagan traditions, these heathens who deal with New Age philosophy, these Buddhists and all that. You get with these same people who worship the fallen gods within the earth. Eventually, you're siding with gods against the God who delivered our forefathers. So guess what? There's a judgment. What judgment? The judgment we're living under. Because all the gods you are serving in the earth are telling the people to drink. It's time. You're on a suicidal trajectory. Drink the juice. And the Most High is allowing it. There's no God warning us from what modern medicine is doing to the earth right now. And I'm going to show you where I'm going. Finish reading.
Yes, sir. Verse 2. That thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee, thou and thy son and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged.
That thy days may be prolonged. So he says, listen, parents, we're responsible for making sure what? This agreement stays intact. That means if one day I'm gone, my sons will be instilling this in their children. That's our responsibility when our children go out into the world. They must have conscious knowledge of the God and appreciate the God who delivered our foreparents and who has delivered our people in this time through Christ with the true knowledge. With that true knowledge that and appreciate it. Just listen, fear me. Make sure your children know who I am. Don't let them go someplace and forget about me. Finish.
Yes, sir. Verse 3. Hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee, and the land that floweth with milk and honey.
Come on.
Verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one.
The Lord our God is one. Are we one with our God? Boy, what if we were one with our God, like the European is with his? What brothers and sisters, if we were one with our God, like the Chinese people are with their whole country worships the dragon outright. Man. And we're being religiously torn apart, divided, not realizing that all of these nations have targeted us. Has targeted us with their lesser religions. Only because they know what happens when we come together as a people. We lost our history. They didn't lose our history. When we came together as a people, and our God the Bible was with us. And guess what? All of these wars are recorded in secular history, even in Gentile history, against the Israelites. Imagine, you put the Jamaicans, the Dominicans today, blacks, the Puerto Ricans, the North American Indians, the Seminole Indians. Imagine all the West Indies, all our people in Africa. Imagine if you were to put us all together under one mind, one spirit, one God. What army in the earth could oppose us? So don't forget, it's in the interest of the world powers to keep us divided. Knowing that the history of what happened to their forefathers when our people understood there was one God and we were one under that God. So it's in their interest to keep us divided and thinking and making us believe we have this higher knowledge by going into Egyptology and black science and this, that, and the other. It's in the Gentiles' interest because why? Why? They didn't forget our history. As long as we don't come back under the standard that was destroying their forefathers and had them fear us like we once feared our God. Come on.
Verse 5. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might.
Look at that.
And these were...
You should love your God with what, Elder Lawyer?
With all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might.
And with all thine might. Love thy God. Now, if we know our God and love our God, that alone, brothers and sisters, will give us a higher appreciation for one another. The patience he had when we did wrong. The forgiveness, he continued to forgive us regardless of what we do in the earth, as long as we're willing in a contrite spirit to come back and say we're sorry. We're sorry for what we've done. He continually receives us. Imagine if we had that same love amongst one another and not find a way to continue just to cut off relationships and to not speak to people. And listen, there's a bigger standard here. The togetherness and what God wants from us is bigger than our personal pet peeves and offenses or offenses. When we say the Lord our God is one, it's like, well, okay, it's time for us to take that same love he had for us and the standard he had for us and use it for one another. For good. Use that same love and being one and saying, you know what? I'm not going to hold a grudge. You did me wrong. And now I'm not going to put you in a position to do that to me again. That's foolish. But I can forgive you. I can honestly forgive you. Okay? Without holding a grudge, without cutting you off forever. Right? So that love extends not just with us understanding our God who gave us the commandments, but the laws of civility that he's given us to do what? To live one amongst another. At one time, all of the other nations envied the love we had one for another. Come on.
Yes, sir. Verse 6. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up.
That means what? It says right here, thou shalt diligently teach it, 7th verse, unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house. This is what we owe our children, to know about this great God. And when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, remember me. I'm protecting you. The invisible is with you, guiding you. He's there. And how many of us can honestly say at least once a day, not even 3 times a day, we take a little space, even in the bathroom, to ourselves or something, to acknowledge and appreciate the God who gave us life? We're so busy in our lives right now, and that we prioritize God backward. It's not giving reverence to him for giving us life and breath every day first. It's fitting him in. Him being less in priority with all the other things we must do to survive. But folks, I'm going to tell you, all civilization soon will halt. All of these Babylonian cities and all that are on grids, folks. And it was meant one day. It was meant one day, folks, for all the power plants we see in the earth to stop. It was meant. It was set up that way. And if y'all don't believe me, folks, I need all of you to look up. A matter of fact, I'll do it right here for you. I'll do it right here for you. This is from the Library of Congress, so that brothers and sisters can't think that this is some conspiracy, okay? Why power companies build nuclear reactors on fault lines. The case of Japan. The case of Japan. How many U.S. nuclear plants are located near earthquakes? Frontier. Located near earthquake faults. How many? There's many. When you read the story, look at this. Right? Just look it up yourself, folks. Look it up yourselves. They've strategically built the nuclear plants on fault lines throughout the whole United States.
And you will feel it.
One big earthquake
on the East Coast
will have it where it'll be what? A chain reaction with each power plant blowing, because they built the nuclear power plants on purpose near earthquake fault line.
You need to get out.
Where the Bible tells us, and I'm going to read it,
If you can't,
that it's going to be a great stone. That means something is going to happen like an earthquake that's going to put a stone in the water, and eventually a tidal wave will happen, and America will be broken into 3 pieces. 3 separate parts. All the dams will break, all the levees will break, and there will be 3 separate pieces of America. We'll still be living in it.
In 6 hours, you, your government, and 124 million other people across 14 states will be tested by the greatest disaster to ever hit the U.S. East Coast. A great wave, 1,000 meters tall, moving towards you at 1,000 kilometers per hour. And that's only the beginning. Boston, New York, Philly, D.C., Miami, all underwater. And you? This is What If, and here's what would happen if a mega tsunami hit the US East Coast. Unlike most tsunamis that are triggered by tectonic activity, mega tsunamis are caused by sudden impact. A huge chunk of debris, possibly a meteor, smashes the water, creating a huge wave which might reach thousands of meters high. The initial superwave would set off a chain reaction of smaller waves in all directions. But by smaller, we really mean they'd be about 100 meters high instead of 1,000. Depending on the size and location of the impact and the speed of the waves racing towards you, you may get a few hours of warning. But will that be enough time? Welcome to La Palma, one of the 7 main Canary Islands, home to 81,000 people, and a giant, scary volcano. Suppose it erupts, and the eruption is big enough that it triggers a massive landslide. Massive enough to send 1 billion tons of rock sliding into the ocean, causing a mega tsunami. The initial wave is 914 meters high. It surges upwards and outwards, setting off a chain reaction of deadly waves in all directions. In 6 hours, a series of 30-meter waves will batter the American East Coast. Ramming speed? 900 kilometers per hour. One of the 7 deep ocean assessment and reporting buoys floating along the Atlantic coast will undoubtedly register this mega displacement of water, giving the U.S. Tsunami Warning Center time to alert anyone who might be in danger. The only problem is, that's 38% of the American population. The entire U.S. East Coast would be affected, putting 14 states and 124 million people, including key members of the government, at risk. If you can't make it out in time, then climb. In major cities, the newest and tallest skyscrapers would be the safest places to go. And your own safety would be entirely your responsibility, since emergency services wouldn't really be able to take action until the onslaught was over. In the best case scenario, you've managed to evade the disaster completely. Your family is safe, but your home, not so much. Worse, you're on the roof of a skyscraper, safe, with a group of survivors waiting for a helicopter to come pick you up, which might take a very long time. But in the worst case scenario, the death toll would be staggering. The economic impact easily costing billions, if not trillions of dollars. It will take decades to rebuild, and yet, is it wrong to suggest that we might have gotten off easy? How much worse would it have been without the 6 hours of advance notice? That's right, You owe a big thank you to these super smart boys monitoring the coast, keeping you safe and dry so that you can rest easy and keep watching What If.
But the Bible said it would happen. So when I said, brothers and sisters, that we prioritize God wrong, it's because of the things we have to do in a day, right? Well, when it goes down, folks, it's all going to stop. And whatever you would prioritize for a day will no longer exist. But he will. But he will. So if we get with him now, we'll be with him at the end of it. The same way when people had to stay in their houses, didn't have jobs, doing this old COVID thing or whatever the case is, and didn't know what to do with their lives because what they would normally plan no longer exists. Brothers and sisters, that was a test. People were miserable because the life they thought they had was taken away from them. So what am I to do with my life? You know why you're thinking that way? Because that God you should have prioritized wasn't first.
It is spreading fast.
Declaring a
And
state disaster.
And the majority of people just keep themselves busy
stay-at-home order
to distract them from that void in their life, which is God, who should be prioritized.
Forcing us to change our ways.
But when this happened, folks, there's no going back to work. There's no going back. No, it's a whole nother phase. And this is why I titled this, Why is God Allowing This to Happen? He's allowing all this chaos to happen because there's liberty and freedom in between in which we can choose him while there's an opportunity. He's letting it happen and seeing how the people are reacting who claim they love him, who claim they believe in Jesus, they believe in Christ. Elder Lloyd, let's go back to Deuteronomy.
Secular music and a religious message.
Yes, sir. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse number 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up.
Come on.
And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the post of thy house and on thy gates. And it shall be when the Lord thy God should have brought thee into the land which he swore to thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give thee great and goodly cities which thou buildest not, and houses full of all good things which thou fillest not, and wells dig which thou diggest not, vineyards and olive trees which thou plantest not. When thou shalt have eaten and be full, then beware lest thou forget the Lord, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house.
Hold up, read that last verse again.
Yes, sir.
The
Verse
number
12.
of it. Verse 12. Listen to this, brothers and sisters.
Then beware lest thou forget the Lord, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage.
And it says, beware, fear. Beware lest thou forget the Lord, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. You're going to forget you were slaves. Have you forgot the curses of Deuteronomy 28, how we got here? He says, eventually you're going to forget with all this freedom, with all the gifts of being able to raise your family with resources, no fear of the other nations, no fear of people opposing you, with your king and your people. Lest you forget the Lord who delivered us out of bondage. Folks, Elder Lawyer, I was checking this out. Do our people even Are we a people in America? Let's just use, now we can use this any place in the earth where our people were scattered, but let's use America just as an example. Are our people operating as people that actually went into slavery and was colonized by God's enemies? Think about it. Have we forgot captivity? Have we forgotten it? Oh no, I just got to get the bag and just. What is the purpose? Folks, there is no purpose in life without God.
A few of these situations got so out of hand.
There is no purpose. At the end of it, you can acquire all the riches and acquire everything that you want to acquire, and you'll still be miserable. You will still be miserable because you just have things. You just have things. And all you did, but it was really what? It was the quest, the drive to get that thing you desired. That was really the purpose. It was the drive. It gave you a purpose, not having it. And really, it's about the chase. It's about the drive. That's what gives us life, not the things we acquire.
Bring your cards out, honey.
You get the thing and say, well, okay, I'm bored. All right, what else? Let me find something else to do. But one thing, right? But when it's the Most High, that drive never stops until it's over. If that void is filled where you know the Most High is working with you with that purpose, that drive stays throughout all of our lives. And that's why it told us to teach it to our children. It gives us true purpose for not just when we come into the earth. It gives us purpose from our birth to death. Because we're living for something outside of ourselves. It's about wanting what's right for our people as a whole, not as individuals. It's a purpose. But you can only understand that purpose if God, or the Most High God, is prioritized. Because you will do this and thinking that, and how many things we desire to do or quest, we desire to go on in life. And once we got to it, it was like, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Right? But one thing about when it's the Most High, because just doing the work of the Most High, He always brings forth a new adventure within seeking it. He's like, okay, my son or daughter see me now. They recognize me. All right, okay. All right, send the angels, put this idea in them so they can do this for me. And you will do it, knowing you're serving God and helping people and everywhere. And then at the end of it, you'll be like, man, I got something out of this. My people are doing better. And you know what? I even have more than what I had before.
You know, it's a lot of people that come.
And then the Most High says, because you was doing it backward. You were backward. You were chasing your own life when I'm the one started all this. You get on the path and I put the things on the path that's needed for your purpose for me. You're not going to get it the other way around because there's only two masters to serve. And if you choose the other side, you are at odds with me. See? Let's go, Elder Lloyd.
Yes, sir. Verse 13. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God and serve him, and shalt swear by his name. Ye shall not go after other gods of the gods of the people which are round about you.
Never serve the religions of the Gentiles. The Most High warned us with this standard. This was a standard, folks. Do not follow the religions of the Gentile nations. They're all serving the Babylonian god. They're dealing with Baal, Satan. Don't envy the Gentiles and their traditions and their holidays. Read.
Verse number 15. For the Lord thy God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord thy God be kindled against thee and destroy thee from off the face of the earth.
Come on. Verse
16. Ye shall not tempt the Lord your God as ye tempted him in Massah. Ye shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God and his testimonies and his statutes which he commanded thee.
When it says tempting the Most High, doing things, brothers and sisters, that you know puts you at odds with the God you claim to love. I don't want to do it, but if you make me do it, okay. So it's tempting him. It's to the degree where our people will push and push and push, doing what's wrong, to a degree where the Most High said, you know what? Okay, angels, it's time to go out there and show them downstairs what consequences looks like. And whatever the Most High does, whatever he tell the angels, it's done. Okay? If he sends them in the earth and says, listen, I know this person had a certain amount of time, but I need to see him almost immediately. Get him out of here. Get her out of there. Or he can be like, well, listen, they tempted me. They know they're doing wrong. Let's make it rough on them for the next 5 years. About 5 years, they'll come around. Keep them alive. But they'll come around and they'll realize that they lost 5 years with what they could have done right at an earlier age. I'll just let them go around in a circle like the Israelites did in Egypt. 40 years in the wilderness when Israel was probably about a year and a half away or whatever the case is. They could have got there in months. So you think you got all this going on and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it tell you that I think it's in the book of Haggai. Soon as you put all your plans together, the Most High send the angels. He says, I blew on it. You build your house of cards, and then when you got to the point where it would have been success, he go, and your whole house of cards fall down and you're back at square one. He'll let you just run thinking that you are accomplishing something. Then he'll blow on it. And now you're depressed. Nothing never worked for me. Nothing. Why this keep happening to me? You know why? The operative word you're using is me. That's the operative word. Me. What about your purpose with God? Right? Let's go back to the verse.
Yes, sir. Verse number 16. Ye shall not tempt the Lord your God as ye tempted him in Massah. Ye shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God and his testimonies and his statutes which he commanded thee. And thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with thee, that thou mayest go in and possess the good land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers.
Come on.
Verse 19. To cast out all thine enemies before thee, as the Lord hath spoken. And when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, What meaneth the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which the Lord our God hath commanded you?
So eventually, your children, if you're serving the Most High, your children are going to grow and become inquisitive concerning that I would say the serious belief they have experienced while growing up, beholding your what? Your love for God. The children eventually will start looking at you and then they'll start asking you questions. Because children will grow, but then they'll come to a point of purpose, and then they'll go to people who had purpose to inquire, why is your belief so strong? Teach me to see as you see. Because it's one thing to rehearse what my parents been teaching me. It's another thing to live it and know the God my parents serve. So the Most High knew it one day when a young man or a young woman come of age, they would have questions for their parents concerning him. So when they go to their parents, elder lawyer, read.
And when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, What mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which the Lord our God hath commanded you? Then thou shalt say unto thy son, We were Pharaoh's bondmen in Egypt.
And you will tell them the history in the Bible of how we were Pharaoh bondmen in Egypt. The same way we can now relate it to our children now and say, the same way we was in bondage in Egypt, the Most High through disobedience brought us here to America, which the Bible labels Babylon. See that? Now we're giving our people the true understanding to why God is allowing this. Now our children are asking us questions, and now when we send them into the world, they know why the earth is what it is. They're not questioning God because our neighborhoods are tore down and because there's no honor amongst us anymore. They're not blaming God for it because you're telling them. You're telling them why we're in such a low case here in America, according to God. See? You're not just saying Pharaoh. We're giving our children knowledge of the modern day Pharaoh, the president. Right? And now you're giving knowledge to our children to why the Great Pyramid was printed on the dollar bill. The One World Order. People talking about the One World Order, bringing forth the One World Order. Folks, the One World Order started a long time ago at the Tower of Babel. They're just finishing it. Now you're telling your children, this is why do you think all the way here in the West, you have a pyramid on your dollar bill? And now you're telling your children, well, the same way we built Egypt, it was the children of Israel who built America. We're the people. Because with that knowledge come the standard I read in Deuteronomy 20. We're reading in Deuteronomy 6. It's the standard to what that God requires from us. Okay? Require from us as a people to be a covenant people. See? An agreement with our God. This is what makes you know him. This is how you know you have a relationship with him, because you are in agreement with him. And you're now exercising that agreement amongst your family and conveying that agreement to our children. So regardless of what happens in the world, we can no longer blame our God for what's wrong with it. With the standard, you can actually point out what's wrong when things are being exercised against the laws that was given to our foreparents. And now no longer blame the Most High for things or the evil we see in the earth. Everyone had a standard and a choice. Okay? Finish reading, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Verse 21. Then shalt thou say unto thy son, we were Pharaoh's bondmen in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and the Lord showed signs and wonders, great and sore, upon Egypt, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. And he brought us from thence, or brought us out from thence, that he might bring us in to give us the land which he sware unto our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day.
As it is
and it shall,
at this day. Come on, verse, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. 25, last verse. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord our God, as he commanded us.
And that shall be our righteousness. The more we follow these laws and institute this covenant in our lives, the more the Most High's voice is present within our conscience. This is when you're being guided, and you know you're being guided from something outside of you. Once you're in that agreement and that relationship that comes with actual action, you're being guided through ideas. Things are being instilled in you while you sleep. He's talking with you. Where there's no question whether or not the God exists, whether or not the God of all gods exists. You don't have to try to use and try to convince others he exists. Okay? When you're walking with the Most High, delivering his word, praying to the Most High, following the covenant or the agreement being read, others will know. You don't have to convince a person that the Most High is real. By your actions, others who witness, who are looking at you, that example alone will tell them it's something greater than the person I'm talking with or looking at or hanging out with. There's something greater. Okay? Or I grew up with this person. I've seen this person, and I know that there's another component that's operating with this person that's different. But that starts with what? A relationship, a standard that must be set. Now, and I said earlier about the standard of Babylon, that actually this standard was established when the colonizers came to America, where it doesn't matter if immigrants would come into the country or whatever the case is, they knew the moral code that was established here. But eventually, it stands no more. So hold tight. We're about to go into the second part of, I'm just going to hold it real quick. Why is God allowing the chaos we see today? And I went from the spiritual realm, the covenant. Now I'm about to go to what? Talk about what? The people. Why the Most High is going to allow the majority of the earth to perish in this judgment that will soon hit earth. Hold tight.
I've had, oh God, it doesn't make me sad. Oh no, it doesn't bother me. Strength and honor is all I see. Oh, give thanks unto the Almighty One. He showed me what I had. He said, stand firm and keep the faith. Oh, your reward shall be great. And now I see the day when I'm stepping out of Babylon in New out of Babylon. I've got no alternative in a Babylon. But I know, yes I know, there's a Mount Zion. But oh, someday his children will find a way. So get up and don't let the devil lead you astray. I'm stepping out of Babylon in New Jerusalem, in Mount Zion. Stepping out of Babylon in New Jerusalem, in Mount Zion. Stepping out of Babylon one by one.